Welcome to the virtual B&H event space. I'm Derek Fassbender. So tonight we are with Amos Nachoum, who is going to be talking about dispelling the myths about wildlife photography and doing wildlife photography with a purpose. So Amos has some great work. He's got a lot to say. He's got some wonderful stories. So Amos, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Everybody's here to see some pictures and listen to you. So I'll turn the virtual floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Derek, and thank you, B&H, and thank you, New York, and thank you, America. All the way to you from California, New Yorker, and the rest of the country. Although you are in the evening time or the twilight time in California, still the sun is about 35 degrees over the horizon. I can see it through my window. But I'm going to take you through this period of time that we are in a quarantine and dealing with this pandemic. Through another adventure, through the adventure into the wilderness of how dispelling the myth of dangerous wildlife and to understand really the behavior of the animal. If the biggest explorer of our time are the astronaut, I decided to go to be an aquanaut. And okay, again, let's see. Oh, here you go. So 3/4 of our planet is water. As a photographer, and many of you photographers out there, so just to let you know that I decided after a short time doing fashion photography in Israel, and then war photography in the Middle East, in Bosnia, also Rwanda, Uganda, during the Holocaust there, and Mogadishu, the Black Hawk Down, I was a chance to be there. In any event, I decided to take the camera and to take my life in my hand and in the water to create actually a niche in photography. Because all photographers, like all artists, to have, to be popular, to be successful, should have a niche, should be able to express their heart content. So let's mute all our microphone, allow me to lead it and share with you the images and something that I dream about. As a photographer, I don't have a limit. I'm a photographer. I'm not a diver. I'm not mountain climber. I'm not good in any of this. But what I'm good is with the camera and to be able to be in the element at the moment with the camera. In this case, I take picture topside and I take picture underwater. So, but in order to be successful in America, I did not succeed to get to National Geographic. They did not accept me, my accent, my skill of writing. I'm an Israeli, my accent give me up. So I decided to do something different and to create my own company, but with a niche, in particular, following only the big animal in the beginning, mainly underwater. I did some topside, and the company is Big Animal Expedition. This is how I sponsor my desire in photography. And so people will join me. The beginning of all time was along the Red Sea in the mid-70s, when I took the first American or tourist with me to photograph the Red Sea, but we had to go on the back of a camel to places that was not any accessibility to the location. So what I'm going to share with you is anthologies of my photography of the year in the wilderness, pushing the envelope, living on the edge of comfort and common sense. And I'm going to change some of your perception about the animal. What I'm going to show you, I'm going to share with you a time together with leopard seals and really the behavior of leopard seals, honest. I'm going to share with you behavior of a great white. Matter of fact, just before the presentation, I got an email or messenger from somebody in Australia. They tell me there is no myth about great white or tiger shark because they're really killing surfer and swimmer. Let's go, we'll take the detail. I told him the best way for him to come along with us and to be able to have the conversation online when the issue, or I will show the images of a great white and the behavior. And in the end, I will show you the pictures or the story and probably a trailer for the movie of being together with a polar bear. Let's start not from the high Arctic, we start from the south, we start from Antarctica. And in order to get a feeling of the place, it's not just take a picture on the level of from the deck of the boat. I had to go on top of the boat and to put together with a sailboat and the just gigantic iceberg that was in the front of us. So if we go down and not just the level of, not just take picture on the surface and swim around with big boat or small boat around the iceberg, but be underwater with the iceberg. And that's how it looks. All icebergs are less than 10% on the surface and the rest of it is underwater. So for me, as a guide, is very, 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 very important to determine which iceberg is safe to swim along, because otherwise they're top upside down. But the responsibility go even further. In this case, not just to work people or to coach them about photography, but also about how to photograph, in this case, this leopard seal that unfortunately have a bad reputation because about 10, 11, or 12 years ago, one person, in this case, researcher, a female researcher from a British research station, actually got drowned and killed by the leopard seal. And from there on, there is a big fear of the animal. So let's see what really happened and why things happen and what is the coincidence, the chain of reaction. They are very curious. Not just they're curious, they are territorial and also very territorial and solitaire. They live alone and they are territorial because they will not allow any other animal to come around them. And if they come, they will try to chase them away. So when we come with cameras and we put the camera in the front of the face, what happened? They see themselves, but they don't know it. They think it's another leopard seal. And what they will try to do, they try to scare this away. So if the leopard seal will run away, they will chase after. If they will try to fight it, they will bite harder. But if you stand still, nothing happened, because then they don't know and they open the mouth even bigger and I can put the camera and take a picture. That's all. But the idea is counterintuitive. And for us, so it is not only about taking the picture, it's also to understand the animal. And this is where I put my time and where I share my time with the client, with the guest. We go along, and what happened is to environment where this leopard seal live. And that's what they feed on. They feed on the penguin. In this case, is the Gentoo penguin. And there's a picture, if any of you been in Antarctica, and this is a location called Port Lockroy, is run by a British team that do a lot of research there. And of course, they have a souvenir store, and this is how they support themselves. What happened next is how the leopard seal feed. They usually go on the ice where there is a lot of gentoos. When they come to the water, especially the young one, in a late afternoon or in a low tide situation, actually, not in afternoon, low tide, they bury themselves in the low tide and they wait for the young one to come into the water. When the young one comes to the water, they snap their head, they catch the penguin by the leg and they pull them into the water. And they try to drown them first. Interestingly enough, because I spend with them a lot of time, so by now I know, I've been in Antarctica 16, 17 times by now, is eventually they let go, they catch the penguin, they bring it underwater, as you see the bubble from the penguin come up, and then they let go, and then the penguin, in the last breath, run up to the iceberg, and the leopard seals run after it, catch it, and bring it back into the water. It does it 2 or 3 times till eventually the penguin actually is lifeless, and then they come in and about a moment to take it. The next thing is, as a photographer with a purpose, is not just, oh, I got the picture, I got a great picture and dramatic, and let's go, let's find something else. The idea is to understand really more carefully, more precisely what happened. It's not just to create a beautiful picture. We, as a storyteller, I have a responsibility to tell the whole story. And the whole story is how they feed really. And that's information I got from the researcher, but how you document it. I had to be very close with a fisheye lens to come very close and to see how the leopard seals with his canine teeth actually scratch the skin of the leg in order to remove the feathers. He scratched the skin of the leg and then he shake it violently left and right till the skin peel off and all the feather goes out, and that's what left. And only then the leopard seals can feed or can eat. And that is not just a beautiful picture or great picture, dramatic, but also information for the public to understand better. And the next thing happened when the leopard seal have its prey, the only thing he come when he see us, and now he's looking at the dome, he's playing with us because he's happy, he got what he wanted. That's the gorgeous animal. the most prehistoric animal. He lives only in Antarctica. Unfortunately, not much research has been done about the leopard seals, but since the accident that happened so many years back, no accident like that happened other because better and better guide. We know more and more how to work with them. And I'm going to share with you here a short video. What does that mean really to be with a leopard seal? So you know how acrobatic is this animal and how powerful. They are about maybe 3 to 4 meter long or about 12 feet long. And they are the weight about 400 to 500 kilo. So their bite can be very powerful, but they will not bite if we are not chasing after them or try to push them or to be contradictory to them. If we don't move away, they will just stay and play because for them is a phenomena that they are not familiar with, but it is not the one that will be usually by Mother Nature or their animal that try to run away. Before we move into the great white section, if anybody have any question, Derek, let's help us or help me and get few questions so we can move on without people storing ideas in their mind.
Yes, if anybody has any questions on that first section, feel free. Now is the time to ask. Otherwise, I guess if you want to start rolling through it, Amos, if anything comes in, I'll let you know.
Okay. The next part will be another animal that have even much more misconception about. Unfortunately, many people got hurt by the great white. And let's see really what happened. And let's look at the historic drama around it. 1982, this picture was taken. And when I was on a mission with National Geographic to photograph a great white together with the famous and the well-known and one of my mentors, David Dubillet, and together with Dr. Eugenie Clark, which considered to be is the shark lady that brought shark really to the public knowledge. And together we've been in Australia, but in order to catch a very powerful image of a great white, we had to put bait in the water. In this case, we put actually the tuna. If you see, there is a line beside on the right-hand side of the tuna. There was a pulley on the side of the boat, and we put the tuna in the water. Now, let's pause here for a moment. And look at it. A great white is a predator, just like lion, just like a tigress, just like orca. They are predator. All predators are very careful how when they're going to waste or to invest their energy to take a prey. With natural prey, they know more or less what takes place. They know the wind, they know the speed, and they know how to camouflage themselves and how to move. They know it because this is not nature. They live like that 4 million years, and who knows how long. However, when the bait is not natural, it is something pre-done by us, by people, they will be more careful. Why? Because they spend so much energy and they are successful only 30 to 40 times from 30 to 40% of the time when they go and attack. So they will not attack something they are not familiar with until they check it out. So this shark moved around the bait of the tuna that was in the water vertical, not horizontal moving. So for them, it was very unusual. He came around the bait one, and then second time, and on the third time, we saw it as he came on the surface and tried to take it from the surface. And then, in this case, very famous person, also a very good great white shark researcher and entertainer, Rodney Fox. He was by the line. He started to raise the line of the bait, and then the shark, because it was moving in a speed toward it, had to raise out of the water, and we took the picture. David took the picture, I took the picture, we had similar picture. 3 or 4 years later, another friend of mine had a stock agency, which this is in the 80s, which he became very progressive in his usage of the digital world. He removed the fish out of the picture and become very famous picture. It was a cover of Time magazine, it was on Life, it was other diving, it was one of my defining image that created my career. But look what's happened later. 11 years later, the advertising agency of Discovery found this picture at the Image Bank in New York, and they used the picture to promote their Shark Week. And look what they've done. If you remember the picture before, he's horizontal, but they move it vertical. And why? They had a very, very good reason. Because in 1974, when they made Jaws, there was no picture like that. So they just draw it as the shark come vertically to where the swimmer on the surface. So they did only create imaginary line between what's happened in 74 till 93, almost 19 years later, but to create a drama to bring people into see Discovery Shark Week. Let's look really what happened. So here we are in South Africa, and this is Dyer Island. Usually there are about 10 or 15,000 seals, but when they give birth, May, June, July, there is double. There's almost 30,000 seals. Look at this, how many of them in the water, beside the one on the island. And look how many are on the wave. It is an open buffet for a great white. A great white come in, swim very fast, and as they chase, the seals run away, and the seals run away into the protection of the kelp. Hopefully, the shark will not go in. But for this particular person in Australia that was questioned my assessment, the shark have ability to do something very special. They have a technique how they really catch the seals. They catch him they surprise them by ambush them, and they attack only early morning and late afternoon. When this is in South Africa, in Seal Island, and when we left at 6 o'clock in the morning to this place, and when the sun just rise over the horizon, the angle of the sun over the water is how much light get to the water. So as later in the day, 9, 10 o'clock, the sun is higher and higher, more light get to the water. So early morning, when the adult seals go to sea to catch fish and bring them back for their young one, the shark patrolling around the island or patrolling around any place there are seals in the world, will be California, will be Point Lobos, will be Farallon Island, will be anywhere else in the world. So the shark patrolling around. The shark can see the silhouette of the seals on the surface. The seals or the surfer cannot see the shark underwater. And that's the opportunity for them to ambush and catch their prey. They're not looking for us. They're not looking for any surfer. They don't care. We don't have the blubber that the seal have to give them the energy. That's when they attack, early morning and late afternoon, just like that. In this case, it's a dummy of a seal. So because we had to attract to be able to capture this image, otherwise we never know what will happen. We had a dummy of the seal following our boat by 7 meters behind, and then we'll be able to catch this action and to illustrate exactly what the shark does. Let's look at something else. We'll go back to Mexico now. And we are there together with Mauricio, a researcher, is a PhD in marine biology, in particular shark research. And he'll study the shark, and we are together with him. And what we saw, how the seal actually harassing the shark. They're playing with them. And Mauricio been reporting after he's spending there 3 or 4 months a year, while I go there maybe for 2 or 3 weeks a year. And he was able to report from his study that the shark feed on seals only once every 3 or 4 weeks, does not feed on them all the time. And here you see the shark and the seal together and with no problem. So, but since I have a purpose in my photography, not just taking picture of beautiful animal in the water, and here is a moment to pause and to talk about photography, because we have hopefully many photographers. Water are 800 times denser than air. So in order to get very good picture of any of the animal in the water, especially the big one, we have to come up with wide angle lens and photograph them for very, very close. What happened in wide angle lens? If any one of you knows, any lens from 35 and less, 35, 20, 18, and 16 are distorting the image. There is no true image. It's not exactly like you see in your eyes. So there is a lens called normal lens, which is the 50 or 60 millimeter lenses. And that's exactly our vision of our point of view in our eyes. So since many people taking picture of great white, one angle, another angle, frightening, not frightening, but always from the protection of the cage, I decide to go in open water, no bait, no chum, just put the cage in the water at 10 meters, and I go out of the cage. And because of the sound of the water, of the wave or the current against the cage, the metal of the cage, and the banging of our tanks, and the bubble that we make in the water, the shark that in particular time of the year, this is September, October, November, because the shark are coming there to feed on the elephant seals, shark are there. And because we are there, we create the noise, the shark will come in and inspect us. I could go out of the cage together with a camera and put only a 50 millimeter in order to show to the probably 6 billion people, 990 million people, how really a great white look when I look at it face to face, but without chum, without bait, and I'm not on the surface because this is the danger zone. I will stay in the water eye to eye with a great white. Are you all ready to look at the great white eye to eye, 1 meter away, 3 feet away? Okay, be ready for that. Oh, before that, sorry. So the same photographer that took the picture before is a friend of mine, Jeb Collis. He used a fisheye lens. And again, look what's happened on a fisheye lens. I am only maybe, what is this? I don't know, about 1 meter 70, about 5 feet, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5 feet, 7 inches or 8 inches. Together with Finn, I may be the most, I've been 6 feet tall, okay? So only 2 meters. The shark is 5 meters long, and I'm the same size, and that's because of the forced perspective by wide angle lens. So now I'm looking at the shark, and the shark looking at me. We're 1 meter away, and that is what I see. A smiling great white. But let's see next is a picture, similar picture taken with a wide angle lens. And look the distortion here of the shark. That is the difference. It's the same thing, it's the same distance, same place, just 1 day apart from each other. Let's go back to the normal lens. That's how it looks normally. That is a great white without chum, without bait in the water. Unfortunately, it cannot be done anymore because the commercial operator in Mexico, the American, the Canadian, afraid that something will happen to me or to my client. And just to tell you the truth, in 400 people that I took underwater and succeeded, never been any accident. Never. Accident happened only on the surface, or the shark bite into the cage and hurting the cage and hurting themselves. There is more danger inside the cage because the shark don't know how to stop. Or swimming like that in open field together with a great white. I must laugh because it is such an environment of behavior that we're putting people in a cage, but teasing the shark to behave abnormally and then creating the shark in such a reputation that it does not deserve. This is a classic image from 93 or 94, is an image that together with Andre Hartmann, one of my best mentor and or partner in shark photography and shark exploration. It was the first time when I went out of the cage together with Andre in South Africa. The cage was in the water in about maybe 30 feet of water deep. Andre was on one side, I was on another side, and we told each other if the shark come in, both of us run into the cage. But the opening is small, so who will be the first? Only the one that will be fastest. But the shark came around 1, 2, or 3 times and never come toward us. It stayed always above us in about 10 feet under the surface. Andre started leaving toward the shark, and I followed Andre, and I moved to the position when I have the shark in a silhouette, and the sun hit the mask of Andre, and together create this line of light and this relationship, which is amazing. Okay, before we go into a polar bear, we stop again and have a chance for people to ask questions. I'm sure somebody have a question about the great white.
The movie Jaws, is it? I've always heard that that's, one of the main motivations for the myths around great whites. Now, was it the misconception around before the movie, or did the movie heavily contribute to why people look at great whites a certain way?
I think the movie brought it more to light because it was a movie. There was not very much of a story or good footage or reality make what Disney can make before the movie. And that's what makes it so popular. And so many people went to see it. They're sitting in a theater. It was much easier for them. In 74, television was not yet as popular as it was going to the movies. And that's create the relationship, that create the issue. That's the difference between TV today to the internet today and to the popularity of Facebook and other or Instagram compared to television. Right. They become more and more popular, and that is the changes that we go throughout life. Any other question?
No, I don't see anything popping up. If anybody does have any questions, feel free again to drop them in the chat. If you're listening or watching on Facebook, please comment them in the comment section, and I guess we'll move forward, Amos.
Okay. So we are up on the Arctic. I have a special relationship with the polar bear, and polar bear is enigmatic for me. Is more enigmatic than a great white. And matter of fact, and to tell the truth, that after seeing the movie Jaws and after working with shark for so long, I have decided that as a photographer with a purpose to defeat the idea or to make a story better, bigger story about us as a human, able to interact or to be in line with a polar bear, and even to photograph it in the water. A polar bear is by far much more powerful predator, is the top apex predator on the planet. It can swim, it can dive, it can feed on the land more than what a great white can do. So, and in order to continue my work, I had to go to either photograph them on the ice in Canada or in Spitsbergen or Svalbard of Norway or in Russia, and to dive with them as well. And I will share with you all this part of the story. So in the beginning, we talk about, let's see how they really act on land. The mother just coming out of the den after 3 or 4 months giving birth, about 10% of the time, up to 15%, she'll come up with 3. Another 20, 25%, she'll come up with 2. And the rest of the time, only one baby, one young one. Unfortunately, even she comes with 3 or with 2, only one will ever survive, become a fully grown polar bear because of the survival skill and the ability to live in this extreme environment. Luckily enough, we saw here the mother and 2 cubs. And as being the top predator and there is no other animal that's going to feed on her, she is totally relaxed. She is totally devoted. Is the most tender moment in the wilderness to see this powerful animal, the most ferocious animal, to be able to sit there and totally give itself away for the young one and to feed them. So my responsibility is to bring this to life. It is not just a predator. It's not just a killing machine, as many people think. And indeed, many people got killed or by polar bear as polar bear come in more and more into civilian locations to look for food and to look for, and then in case they're also eating people on the way. Here, mother and cub and how they are in their environment. It is gorgeous moment. It a lot of discipline on our part as a photographer to bring this to life and to be there. Now, she'd been in a den for 3 or 4 months. She did not eat. She's on the ice and she's walking with 1 or 2 cubs or 3 cubs, and she need to feed them. And they are eating, and she is very hungry. So the next part of the of my mission is to be able to see if I can photograph her how she hunt. She will go over the ice, and the ice will be covering the fjord in Norway in this case, and there are ringed seal that live there. And the ringed seal, in order to breathe, in order to survive, they have to make holes in the ice in order to come out and to breathe. And also they put their young one in the hole until the young one be able to swim. The young one, it takes him about a week to 10 days after the born to be able to swim freely under the ice. So the polar bear going after and smell all of the hole in the fjord. Now, she will stop only on the hole as mother and cub walking around looking for the hole, and that's what they're looking for. That's the hole that the seal will, the ringed seal did. And if you can see the marks on the side of the hole as they do it with their flippers and with their teeth as they make the hole into the ice. Now, that is the young one. This is about maybe 6 hours after it's born, the young one. And that is the mother. This is the ringed seal and the young one. When a polar bear smell a hole, that eventually the seal, the young one in it, it will not touch it. We will need to sit very far away from the mother as she goes in and when she stops on the ice, because if we make any noise, any step on the ice translates much farther underwater because the water is 800 times denser than air. She is reprimanding her young one to be quiet so they will not scare away or make a noise, scared away the mother ringed seal coming to the hole where are the young one. When she finds the hole, she will be waiting there, and look at this, how she holding a palm one toward another, not putting the pressure on the ice, and with the talon, she will not scratch the ice. She's putting them one toward another, and she's waiting. We sat there about almost 2 or 3 hours, just looking and waiting till eventually she stood up with all her power. We talk about 1,000 kilos, almost 2 meters, 6 feet tall animal or more. And she punched the ice with all her power, half a body inside the ice and coming up with the prey in her hand. The young one on the side looking and learning how she did it. But don't leave yet, because it's not over. How she take the seal out of the hole, hold it tightly, and even deeper. And eventually they kill the seal, they ate it, and they are leaving toward the next place. A moment here to stop and just to talk about the fact that if receding ice and global warming, there's less and less hole of the ringed seal and the ice, and therefore less food for the polar bear. Therefore, they need to swim greater distances. And now here comes the next story of be able to swim with the polar bear. So just to let you know, to share with you, there was about 4,000 people or more climb up Everest. There were 12 people landed on the moon. Only 4 people before me, and all of them filmmaker, been diving and film polar bear. I was, or I am still today, the first still photographer personally to dive with polar bear and safely. But there is always a but, because about 15 years ago, let's go back here, 15 years ago, I tried to do it, or yeah, about 15 years ago, I tried to do that, and I almost got killed because the team that I work with was not trained and well-rehearsed team, part of my responsibility, of course. And I stayed alone in the water. The buddy team came with me to the water. He lost the tank that was attached to his back. The crew on the boat had to help him. I stayed alone. I remained alone in the water about 15, 20 feet away from the boat with a polar bear. I had to make a decision either to swim back to the boat or to go diving. I decided to go diving. I thought I'll be faster, and the polar bear was running after me. Now, before any expedition I run or before any photography assignment I take on myself, I do research. In the research that I've made then, I learned from two other filmmakers that a polar bear will not dive more than 10 meters. And this is how they film them, in about 10 meters deep. And according to nature, because of the polar bear, because of his fur that is very floating, and his fat is very fattening, the polar bear will not be able to go to push themselves more than 1 atmospheric or 10 meter or additional 1 atmospheric pressure to go down to 60 feet or to 90 feet. All and behold, the polar bear was running after me to about 75 feet. I stopped at about 80, and the polar bear stopped at about 70, 75. I was running almost out of air, and eventually the polar bear went back to the surface, and I made it, and I'm here with you today. So that was the first story. I could not take any picture, but what happened is a great friend of mine, an Israeli, that I was able or asked me to be his mentor. Eventually, he went to do filmmaking. After being still with me for 2 years, he went to do filmmaking, and then he decided to turn the camera around and to do the movie about me swimming with the polar bear. What I'm going to share with you here is few images from the moment where I was able to swim with the polar bear, and that's happened in August, exactly 5 years ago in 2015.
Amos, we have a question come in about shooting the polar bears on land.
Yes.
As far as staying downwind versus staying upwind, is that something that has to be taken into consideration? Ned talks about shooting in the Svalbard archipelago and
yes,
how important it was to stay downwind.
Absolutely, because the polar bear, the main strength of the polar bear is survival is by sense of smell. From a great distance, they can smell where the prey is, and then they will go toward that. If we want to be successful, we can photograph them also when the upwind with them, or upwind, but greater distances with bigger lenses, or downwind where we can come closer in a smaller lenses to photograph them. So it depends on the tools at the moment, or of course depend on your guide in the field and what kind of photography or how long you're going to stay there in order to catch the best picture that you can.
How much time are you often putting in on something like that?
On a trip on the surface that we do in Svalbard is about 1 week long.
Okay.
And the next picture that we did on the water, which was for me one of the best achievement, it is when this particular female carried her young one, and is not really young as you see in the picture, is about almost 2 years or almost 2.5 years old. But because by the time they are 3, usually they go alone, they leave the mother. But not only did she hold this adult one or semi-adult, but also allow her to be between me and her. She did not take it, putting on the other side of her protection for my present. One of the main reasons for that is somebody this morning asked me about how is that to photograph in the water. One of the main element important is to understand that when you go diving, or to be in the water, free diving or scuba diving, you need to be very comfortable in the water before you be able to function with the camera, or to function the camera to your satisfaction. In this case, Adam and I, the filmmaker, which I will show you later on, we stand still in one place. We let the polar bear come toward us. We never made any approach toward them. No matter how long it took, we let them come toward us, and that's why she felt comfortable to swim by. If we were more than 1 meter, in this case, I'm only maybe 2 meters away from her, or she is away from me. I did not come close to her. I let her come by me. But if she will go 4 or 5 meters away from me because of the visibility in the water in August in the high Arctic, I could not take the picture and will not be as vivid as you see here. So there was another mother and cub that we saw. Actually, it was mother and 2 cubs. And one of the young one looked at me, came toward me, and then when we went back to the surface, I followed it to the surface. And then I was able to capture the mother with the paws over my head. And this is here the picture of the mother and 1 cub that was swimming toward me. And then I swim on my back, overlooking, and the mother, she looked at me, and I'm looking at her, and together, because they're swimming only with the front paws, and the rear paws are actually their router. They want to give them direction, and the front paws is the one that gives them the power to move. And as we see here, very close with the 1635, I am on a maybe 20 millimeter closing, and come toward the polar bear to photograph it, to capture the power that have in the paws. And that is my claim to fame, the moment that I was able to be in about no more than 15 feet or maybe 12 feet on the water, and then the mother and cub swimming over my head, and all 3 of them looking at me. So Adam and I, the filmmaker that made the film, and I'll show you a clip in a moment, we were staying in one place. We saw the mother coming from one island to the next island. And as she went to the water, we went to the water almost 150, 200 yards away from them. And we stayed there. We traded water. We stayed on top of the water that she can see us at all time. And she was swimming directly at us. She could go any 5 meters away from me, to the left, to the right. I could never photograph her, and especially not over my head. She came directly over my head only because Adam and I were not aggressive toward them. We were staying in one place, allow her to do whatever she wanted. We had to take the risk. But understanding wildlife, having the discipline, we were able to capture the image. So it's not only about photography, it's about also understanding the wilderness and the physical ability. Today, we make print out of it, fine art prints. We make only 1 out of 30, or only 30 print like that. They are 1.5 meters, 60 inches by 40. And I'm proud to say that the leading marine biologist or conservation leader, Dr. Sylvia Earle, is one of the person who bought this print out to decorate her home or an office. Part of the fine arts images that I do, that I print today. And of course, I deliberately do it in black and white because I want to take off all the aura of the blue water and the yellow, and to focus the eye of the viewer on the tender moment of the mother holding the cub, and allow her to be by my side rather than be protective or run away from me or run away from us if we are responsible. I'm going to take you through a short video, actually 2.5 minutes, which was the trailer for the movie they made about my life as a photographer, and the highlight, of course, is diving with the polar bear.
Amos, to me, is one of the best ambassadors of the ocean. It takes a huge amount of risks to bring those images which nobody else has ever been able to capture.
He comes back with images that no one can get. He is probably the best underwater still photographer in the world.
His story was always read in mystery.
He doesn't have a normal life. He doesn't have children. He's married to the ocean.
He has this passion. He wants to be in the water, close to polar bear, swim with the biggest predator on Earth.
If the wind is too turbulent, you're not going to go there.
There's so many factors that can work against you.
All right, guys, we're taking off.
Amos and his team have only 5 days to find a polar bear and take the picture.
It's the one animal where humans are part of their food chain. People get eaten by polar bears.
He needs that adrenaline rush. He needs to be at the edge. And if he doesn't do it in one way, he'll do it in another way. And maybe his military background has how to do with it.
What happened to Amos in the army is a mystery to me. He didn't come home, really.
I can see blue sky compared to see flames.
I wonder if there is some kind of unfinished business with Colombia.
Believing in yourself and go all the way for it, no matter what else. And this is all the power of vision.
Amos wants to prove that those large animals aren't our enemies, and that we can live with them in harmony.
Nana.
So guys, all the pictures that you've seen here are taken in the natural environment, and all of the animals depicted here are free and wild, and they are not be teased and not be threatened and not being called to act in front of my camera. It is not Disney World, it is the real world. In this case, I would like to leave you with one thought, especially because of the corona and what the corona contribute to us, to see how clear the sky can be, how quiet the ocean will be, is that let's be kind and mindful of our oceans as we're going back to normal life. It does not mean that we should do the same thing what we did before. How it's going to look like, nobody knows. There are 7 billion people on the planet, and we go toward 8 and 9 billion. It's difficult to maintain a responsible environment. However, it is our responsibility to lead by example. And that's what we need to do from the free world. If you want to see more of my work about expedition and interested to join and to be a photographer and to do more animal photography, biganimals.com is my website. And if you are interested in print or fine art, image print, only fine arts that I do those days, about wildlife, amosphotography.com. I thank you very much. I thank you, Derek. I thank B&H to give me the opportunity. And I'm open to question about anything from photography to wildlife or to anything else but marriage.
Thank you so much, Amos. Now, first question, obviously, where can we watch that film that we just got the preview of?
Only when we go back to the movies, you'll be able to see it. Unfortunately, no movie theater. And right now, the movie will be shown only in festival. And the next festival, if we'll be able to show, will be the Mountain Festival in Colorado. The movie was accepted to their festival, which is a great honor, and I'm very proud to say that. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, for people who haven't, I mean, I think everybody has this ultimate dream, whether you shoot wildlife or not. Like me, I'm a street photographer, but on my list, and every once in a while when I get bored and it's 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, I start Googling how I can make my way up to see polar bears and take pictures of them without taking out, another mortgage. So, for people who it's so far out of their realm right now, they might think it's so far out of their realm. What's the first step like to go in and capturing this on your own? Is it going through one of the major expedition companies or?
Okay, Derek, the question is a very good one. And I asked myself this question earlier in my life. I will admit here, I got myself into mortgage. I mortgaged my life, to get to do those pictures. I had an aim, I had a goal. That's why I called that, as you know, photography with a purpose. I can say clearly, I can admit that I was in debt over $250,000 before I start to see income coming in to be able to create a career, to build. Now, I believe, or maybe because I'm an Israeli and I went to a war and I went through more than 1 or 2 wars, it is that if I don't risk myself emotionally and physically, if I don't sacrifice myself and to survive and emotionally put myself, I will not be able to come with pictures that make a difference. And that is the key. So to take a trip tomorrow to go with polar bear in Svalbard, yes, you can go with a group of 10, but then you'll not be able to see this moment. because it's too much noise. And this is defeating the purpose. You can, if you rent a camera from B&H on 800 and put a doubler on it, and you get there. But even then you not get it because it's too far and too much air between you and the subject. So indeed, it's a small group. In this case, I take only 3 people to do that.
Okay.
But you can go to Canada, is sit on a tundra. You not go to the ground level to take it. To make the movie and swimming with the polar bear. To Yoni and Danny, the 2 producers from Israel that did the movie, it cost them they had to bring over $1 million to do that.
Wow.
And that's why I guess you gave me the chance to be here to share the knowledge or the spirit of adventure. Maybe it's not for everyone, but for the few that able and capable, and to do it right, they can hopefully join me or somebody like myself that does those kind of expedition or those kind of trip. But here is another point, that some of the trip today to be with other animals like the whales, it become extremely popular before the corona. It be very popular. So restriction have been forced by local government now in different places, either in Norway with the orcas, or in Tonga with the humpback whale, or in Dominica with the sperm whale. But why we are willing to pay $1,500 for 1 hour to go with gorillas in Uganda, Rwanda? But people are really questioning why it costs so much to go with humpback whale, or to be with blue whale, or to be with sperm whale. Now those countries issuing a permit. And if I lead a group, I have to lead under and with a permit only. And that's cost $3,000, $5,000, or sometimes $600 a day just to be there and go put the people together to do it. So that is the balance that today, how we can not control, but how we're not going to break the relationship in the water or in the environment, and to let the wildlife continue prosper rather than to suffocate them because so many people want to do it.
Now, before we wrap up, we had a question come in, which is pretty interesting. I didn't really think about this previously. When you're going out and you're shooting these animals, are you, there is a heavy aspect of knowing some of the biology, about the animals that you're shooting, that I'm guessing helps, create the perfect situations, knowing how to track them, knowing about their behaviors. Now, is this something do you travel with somebody who is very well versed in the biology of the animals? Is it something that you study the biology, so you're more of a, you're studying the actual animals, not just the photographic aspect of it?
Yes, that's why today I have all this white hair. I guess 40 years in the wilderness. I study the animal. I do all the research. When I started, as I mentioned earlier, National Geographic did not want to accept my challenge to them to photograph it. No magazine was willing to pay me to risk myself to be with polar bear or with great white. So I had to do it on my own. So I had to study that. And it took many years. And I said I was $250,000 in debt. I study each animal. I will go out to the wilderness by myself, together with some local expert. But they were completely bewildered that I want to be, I'll give you an example, I did not show it today, with the anaconda. 8 years or 9 years ago, when I went to Brazil, nobody was swimming with anaconda. I went and I took a local person and he helped me. He brought me to the water, but he did not go with me to the water. That's not, I'm the craziest man arrived to Brazil. And today is a quite is in demand. I will not say popular, but is in demand kind of trip. So I study the animal. I go by myself, and the first year and the second year, I study the animal. I study the environment. I study the logistic and the health condition, and the case of evacuation, hospital, first response and first degree operation. All those elements that you can operate in the United States, which is the leading country, and the people are the capable and able, and responsibility is very important. Human life is very important. That was my responsibility, is not only taking good picture, because an expedition leader, I had several other responsibility, and one and foremost is the safety of my client, of the guests that coming with me. And by giving me the trust, they allow me to take the picture. So I had to pay them back by making them feel comfortable first before taking any picture.
Wonderful. Well, Amos, thank you so much again. There's a reason why you're a wonderful friend of B&H. We always love having you. You talk. You're welcome back whenever. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, whether you're on Zoom here or out there in Facebook world. Thank you for your questions, for your interest, and for joining us. As I had stated earlier, we have a whole list of wonderful events coming up. And I believe I'm going to drop a little teaser here. Amos is going to be joining us again in the next week or so. So for those of you who are a fan of his work and hearing his stories, there's going to be more of Amos coming soon. So Amos, thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you all join us in the future.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, B&H, and all the people that are actually shopping at B&H and understand how wonderful to have such a big store in America. No, wonderful.
Yes.
But the knowledge of the people there and the support you get is great. It's second to none in the business. And I know the store since 1978 when they still were on 18th Street between 6th and 5th Avenue.
Okay, you got me beat. You got me beat.
I remember the store very well. Okay.
I've been a customer about 25 years. I can't come close to that. But thank you again. I now will no longer complain about spending $1,000 on a lens after hearing about how much you've put into your passion. So thank you again, Amos. Thank you again, everybody else. Everybody be safe and have a wonderful evening.
Until the next time.